Cheap, cheap, cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap.
Victorian London, home of the lovable Dickensian rogue. You've got to pick a pocket or two. Well, actually, in reality, it's more like you've got to engage in burgling, blackmail, brutal gang warfare utilizing melee weapons, and a bit of assassination. But you know, in a charming way. You bless Lightfinger and the members of his thieves guild as they try to eke out a living against the corrupt establishment, who seemingly are just as at home in the shadows as they are. He's a regular Robin Hood, if Robin Hood used bombs and child labor. Well, in all fairness, I'm sure Robin Hood would have used bombs if they existed yet, and would he really have said no to a plucky soul who wanted to join the cause? It's a digital board game, but sometimes it feels more like a strategy game, because the only RNG is what type of neighborhood is located where, randomly applied to the fixed town planning layout. And also when and where the unaffiliated thugs and contracts pop up. You have your master thief, with action point scout pathways to clear the fog of war and enable travel, as well as the districts I mentioned, and the businesses and institutions located within them, and thereafter rob them, and gain lanterns or usually gold. Then you can use that gold to recruit an urchin to infiltrate those businesses, and give you passive benefits, such as gold or lanterns per turn, or maybe an improvement to your recruits. Or you can hire thugs to block your opponent's travel, at least temporarily, gangs to kill their units, or evict their urchins. My, that's a twist. It's absolute punishment. And you can also trap buildings to protect what's yours. But you can only do these things once you've researched the appropriate technology. And through this tech tree, you can also make them stronger. Give your master thief increased action points, maybe increase their strength, or perhaps improve their discerning eye to enable them to steal art or jewels, because they really needed a bit of a think before they could step up to those. But a bank job, no problem. These technologies are what you spend the lanterns on. But if you can't afford this turn's technology, or if your strategy would be better served with more resources, you can get some charity. So you can sort of compare this to a strategy game's build and research order, although here it does feel a bit more like there are other strategies you can follow and different paths to victory you can come up with. And the game is about earning victory points. So it won't necessarily just devolve into messing with one another, unless you like to play with the mean-spirited. Territory is very malleable, because as soon as the fog of war is gone from the pathways, you can travel anywhere in a single bound. That's why you need thugs to block them. Beef and level up your gangs to own and profit from the streets. Recruit thugs to join them. Increase their health, level up their attack, make a great deal of cash with every kill, feel unstoppable, and then get killed by a single-use assassin. Theoretically, every move has a counter if you can afford it. You only get a blackmail victory point if you've infiltrated a church with the maximum of 3 urchins, and you lose it upon eviction. That's a lovely occasion to use a bomb. But some victory points are permanent. Bribes require pure lanterns, maybe justifying a more sedentary, defensive, economy-based playstyle, but you can only get a maximum of 3 victory points this way, so you do need to get out a bit. Assassination targets will regularly appear. Killing them will give a victory point too, but progressively they will have more health and may require more than one attack to take down. Meaning that if you were planning to play an impressive game where you don't allow your opponent a chance, they'll get a bit more breathing room. And lastly, cargo is the permanent version of blackmail. Unfortunately, it only supports 2-player. My guess is there's some kind of issue regarding balance, but the developers couldn't see a satisfying way past. And that's light for a board game, but the game is fun and compact yet complex. At least that's how I felt playing this with a friend over remote play together who had not played the tutorial. A lot of stuff I had to explain. But all that complexity feels like tactical possibility. And even though my mind is quite limited in this regard, I can't see any glaring exploits that could win you the match outright. And it genuinely feels like a balancing act, as long as you're playing against an opponent who considers all the options. Like actual strategy. A weird, if less complicated chess match. But if you're playing against someone who doesn't understand it fully, and does not consider all the options, well then, gang it up. Work towards having 2 gangs, and won't allow them to do anything. As hinted at, the game does have a campaign of sorts, with the first few missions acting as a tutorial, and the others being matches against the AI on different game modes, with 1 or 2 that are truly unique to the campaign, and can't be played against someone else. So in a way, most of the campaign is kind of a tutorial. It's perhaps not the most exciting exercise to play a board game against the AI, but at least they throw in something telling of a story to justify the act. But it's a very bare bones one, light, and it doesn't strain itself. More introductions to different playable characters really. Not good either, just extra padding. Please sir, may I have some more? That's some incredibly mediocre accent work. Or am I being too generous to myself? And now onto the visuals and music, where it shines quite brightly. Visually it's great, cartoonish but with an edge necessary for depicting scoundrels. Has enough darkness too, but still keeps it cute. Sometimes angular, sometimes bulbous, maybe even big up top, thinning as you go down. But in a cohesive style, both sinister and adorable, cool yet lighthearted. That's probably part of a board game's MO. I mean, how often can a board game feel anything other than fun? Except in the cases that the game isn't particularly fun. Insert your own joke here about your least favorite board game. I'm not going to attempt it. I like a bit of bad luck dictating victory or defeat. The music adds to this feeling too, because it drifts between sinister alleyway music the whimsical, industrious, and beautiful. All while using whatever string instrument they use to make things sound regal. But it doesn't detract from the darkness and overall feel. Quite instrumentally complex, as you've heard. The campaign is fairly short though. I believe it took me like 6 hours, and I've played a few times with friends. It's not a bad game to play multiplayer. As said, remote play together works. Hot seat. And I'd say for me, on average, it took me about an hour to play a match, accounting for explaining what to do to unfamiliar players, etc. So let's set my playtime to 7 hours. 6 hours for the campaign, and 1 multiplayer match. That feels rather reasonable to me, although please make allowances if you don't think you're the kind of person that will sit through this kind of campaign or won't play it with friends. And the game is cheap on Steam, 145 Rand full price, 29 Rand on sale. That's 4 Rand 15 cents per hour of gameplay, which is okay, especially for this, which is essentially a local multiplayer game. I would argue, at the very least, that's its focus. And these games tend to have a tendency towards having the worst value for money. Honestly, an okay value for money is better than what you usually find. You know, assuming you don't play it a lot with friends. If you think you're going to do that, then this will pay off amazingly. As said, my friends didn't hate it. Just remember though, it doesn't have 4 players. And the game does have a small download size, as it only takes up 131.38 megabytes on the hard drive. That's excellently small. And on the Warhorse it works without incident, very playable. It can dip to about 54 FPS, maybe jolt on turn starts, but usually I saw between 59 and 61 FPS. And stereotypically, it is quite kid-friendly. I'd say the violence is bloodless. A lot of kids can handle it. It's more grim in atmosphere, really. The game has great cartoony, dark visuals with edge while still being cute. Angular yet bulbous. Thin to wide. They're kind of caricatures. Good, regal, Victorian-inspired music that accompanies the visuals very well. Stays fitting while it shifts between light and dark. Serious and playful. It can create a positive feeling of magic and wonder, although in all fairness, more often than not, it feels rather sinister. And I feel like the gameplay is great, well thought out, feels like a balancing act, is actually strategic. At the very least, it's without an obvious exploit. As far as I can tell, most moves have counters. If 2 fully leveled up gangs are so powerful, they're hard not to shoot for. In my opinion, this game plays more like a strategy game than a board game, because it doesn't really have RNG, except for the random placement of different districts and buildings when you start a match. But it can be a bit complex to explain to uninitiated friends. On the maybe side, the campaign is made up of kind of standard game modes against the AI. It has 1 or 2 unique ones, but otherwise it kind of acts like an extended tutorial. I won't blame you if you put this particular point as a downright con, but in all fairness, it can be rare for a local multiplayer focused game to even have a campaign, let alone a board game. So maybe a maybe's fair. And once again it only has 2-player capability, which is light for a board game, but arguably a bit unusual. If for whatever reason you only want 2 players, the story doesn't strain itself short bursts to justify that type of campaign, but it does succeed atmospherically because of the visuals and music, and it does have some humor in the form of neighborhood names. They're amusingly depressing, and I'm not sure if they're pre-written or generated by combining a gross or negative adjective or a direction with a noun that's also sometimes gross or negative. Come on, play it, and try to continue Lightfinger's semi-goody-goody thing, mildly Robin Hooding it by stealing from the rich, such as estates, banks, trading houses, orphanages, all the usual suspects.
I'm on my way. Hello, children. Don't cry.
Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.